One thing to consider when it comes to work-life balance within your team is the culture of the organization that you work in, because that culture is going to have a significant influence over the degree of leeway that you have when it comes to creating work-life balance within your team. It will be pretty obvious that work-life balance in an organization where the working hours are long is going to be very different from the work-life balance of an organization where the working hours are more reasonable. Also, work-life balance is going to look very different in an organization where there are existing policies and practices to help encourage work-life balance versus another organization where there may be none. So these are some considerations that you need to consider when looking into work-life balance for your team. Earlier on, I mentioned about the need to exercise judgment in your leadership when it comes to work-life balance, because there will be moments when you need to focus on productivity and other moments when well-being makes a lot more sense. As I mentioned before, well-being and productivity are closely interlinked. One cannot be without the other. And so even as you are focused and your ultimate accountability is to drive the team results, you always need to take into account the well-being of your team that enables them to drive those results. So let's take a look at a scenario right now where your team is interested in having more work-life balance. How do you go about balancing between productivity and well-being within the context of your team? First off, you need to set the example that you yourself are interested in work-life balance in your words, actions, and decisions. If you are talking about it, if you are taking action on it, if you are making decisions with work-life balance in consideration, then you're signaling to your team that it's safe for them to do it as well. You will also recognize that work-life balance isn't the same for each person in your team. And that means you need to accept that how each team member views work-life balance and how they want to juggle productivity and well-being is going to differ from one person to the next. And that means working with each team member so that you understand what work-life balance looks like for them. And then working within the context of the culture of the organization to see how work-life balance can work. And that means having those essential one-on-one conversations so that you understand what work-life balance looks like for each team member and that they also know what is reasonable and that can be implemented within the team. Each time when there is an opportunity to implement work-life balance, it's also an opportunity to exercise your emotional intelligence, particularly judgment. Because each situation is going to be different, it is a constant balance where sometimes you need to focus on productivity and other times well-being. And one of the things that you need to share with your team is that work-life balance is an endless journey and it is a continuous juggle between their productivity and the well-being of themselves. It is going to really help you if you can find out what existing human resource practices and policies there are that will support work-life balance within the organization, because that culture of the organization is going to influence how far you can go with your work-life balance within your team. And ultimately, work-life balance aren't competing ideals, but really interlinked where well-being is essential for productivity. So keep that in mind and know that from the day to day and moment to moment, it's always a juggle between productivity and work-life balance. In researching to answer this question, a couple of things definitely stood out for me. One, as the first-time leader and the leader of your team, you have a significant influence in how work-life balance is going to play out for your team members. Two, each team member is going to have a different perspective or interpretation of what they think work-life balance looks like for them. And so it's important that you understand what that means. Three, work-life balance is a continuous flow between productivity on one hand and well-being on another, and this constant juggle to focus on well-being, and then focus in other times on productivity. And ultimately, you want to keep the communication channels between yourself and your team members open so that you're constantly aware of their work-life balance, because well-being does impact productivity. And if your team members feel unproductive, it is going to hit their productivity. And so work-life balance is definitely a topic that you as a first-time leader need to have interest in. If you enjoyed this video so far, really appreciate if you give me the thumbs up. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you have yet to subscribe to First Time Leadership, do click on that subscribe button to be notified of when new videos come out to help you with your leadership journey. And lastly, if you have any comments about what I've shared in this video, do share a comment below. I hope you found this video useful in how to have work-life balance in your team. My name is Daniel Lee from First Time Leadership. I look forward to speaking with you soon.